this video I'm going to show you some basic techniques for processing stars. And the reason processing stars is interesting in the first place is that when you photograph a deep sky object, the actual thing you're interested in photographing is very faint, and you have to do a lot of curve stretching to bring out that detail in your image. And when you do that, you also are applying those curve stretches to your stars, and that can cause them to become very bloated and to just turn white and lose all of their colour information. Now, if you're happy with that, then that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But if you're looking to perhaps process your data in a different way and get some colour information back into your stars and really bring out the punchiness of the deep sky object by making the stars less intrusive, if you like, in your image, then you might be interested in these techniques. So let's get started. I'm going to use some data that I acquired back in 2018 of the North America Nebula. Now this is monochrome narrowband data, but the same principles apply to colour data. So let's get started. So here are my three files. I've got a sulfur, a hydrogen and an oxygen stacked image with all the calibration applied, and I'm going to start with the hydrogen. So I'm going to do a conversion to 16-bit so we can use all the processing capabilities, and I'll choose exposure and gamma just so you can see, because sometimes I use equalized histogram for speed, but just so you can see what happens as we do the curve stretch. So we'll do a curves adjustment, and I'm going to just apply a gentle curves adjustment. As I do this, you can see that the stars are getting brighter, and so is the nebula in the background. Okay, so we'll do another curves adjustment, and you can see it's bringing up everything together. Might do a levels adjustment at this point just to keep that black level from going too bright, and we'll just do another curves adjustment. Alright, you can really see the deep sky object coming up now. Let's do a levels adjustment. One way to do the curves adjustment is actually, rather than doing curves, levels, is you can actually apply an S-shaped curve. So for example, like this, and that will keep the background darker whilst lifting the actual nebula itself. So there we go. So let's say I'm happy with that as a basic processing of the hydrogen alpha. You can see that these really bright stars here are really very bright indeed, and probably actually clipped already. So let's do the same thing now to the sulfur image. So I'm going to convert to 16 bits, exposure and gamma, and then I'm going to do a curve stretch. And there's a lot less detail in this channel on this object, so I did quite a brutal curve stretch here. Might do a small levels adjustment just to lift up the black level a little, and now do another curve stretch. I'm starting to see that object better and better. I've got a little bit of space to the left of the histogram, so I'm just going to keep that black level down. Maybe one more curve stretch on this one. Again, I'll do an S-shaped curve there. Okay, so there's my hydrogen and there's my sulfur. I think I actually need to go a little further just so that the sulfur contributes enough compared to the hydrogen. Something like that. And you can see here that the stars really have become very bright, and the halos around the stars are also becoming very dominant, especially on these really bright ones. Okay, so sulfur, hydrogen, and let's just do the oxygen. So we'll convert the mode to 16-bit again, and we'll do a curves adjustment. I'll do another one. I'll do an S shape this time. And again, another S-shaped curve adjustment. Details starting to come out now. Now I'll just do a quick levels adjustment on that. Just lift up the black level a little, and maybe one more curved adjustment on there, a little bit of an S shape on it. Okay, I'm just going to do one more curve on the oxygen just to make sure I've got enough brightness in the nebulosity. There we go. And it's a similar story. You can see that the stars have become quite bloated. So let's now create a new image. We'll have an RGB image, same size as the original, so 4656 by 3520 in this case, RGB color. And we'll create that. And we'll go to the channels and select the red channel, and we'll take the sulfur image, Control A, Control C, into here, the red channel, Control V, switch to green, hydrogen, Control A, Control C, and then into the RGB image, Control V, and then select the blue channel, and the oxygen, Control A, Control C, and back to the blue channel, Control V. Now we can enable all three, and we have a basic color image, and we can have a look at what we've got here. So you can see that the stars are actually white with a sort of tinge of magenta around them, which personally I don't like at all. So I could, for example, do an adjustment layer on hue and saturation, where I select the magentas and kill off the saturation. That kills the magenta, which certainly makes the image look a lot better. But you can already see that pretty much all of my stars, not all, but most of my stars, certainly the really bright ones, they're all white. And so I've lost a lot of the information in my star colors because I've stretched them so far that they've reached the limit of red, green and blue intensity, and so they all just turn white. They've all got, if you like, if it's 8-bit data, then it's 255 is the value for red, green and blue, and you end up with white. So this is the problem that I'm trying to address by processing this data differently. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to go back to the monochrome images, and we're going to remove the stars from the monochrome images, and then we're going to go and combine the three of them in an RGB image without any stars in at all. And then when that's done and we're happy with it, I'm then going to process the same original data again to produce an image just of the stars, and then I'm going to add that back in. So the first thing to do is to remove the stars from these individual monochrome images. Now if we want to remove the stars from an image, there are two bits of software that I'm aware of that can do that. One is called StarNet++, and that's available online, and I'll put a link to the website where you can download it on the video here. The other one is a plugin for Photoshop that is called StarXTerminator, and again I'll put a link to the website so you can find out where to get that from. You can get a trial version, gives you 30 days I think, and you can also then, if you decide you like it, you can use that. And I've done some experimenting recently and found that the StarXTerminator gives a better result on the removal of the stars, and is also a little bit quicker than StarNet++, so I do actually recommend that. I've already installed StarXTerminator here, so I can go to Filter, RC-Astro, StarXTerminator, and I can click OK, and now it starts the process of or the processing of that image to remove the stars. It does take a few minutes, so I'll probably speed this up for you so you don't have to wait. I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so that's finished, and that took something like a minute and a half to process, and we can now see the result of that. In fact, if we go back to the previous step, we can see This is with the stars and this is with the stars removed. Now the process is not perfect, and you can see for that really bright star on the right here that there's a sort of residual disk which doesn't look nice at all. But the rest of this image, it's done a really impressive job. I think I can just about make out, is there something just there which maybe not actually. Yeah, just behind that star there's something, but that may be real, of course. So I'd be tempted to leave that alone. So the only thing I really don't like here is this particular star here. So what I'm going to do is use the clone tool now, and I'm going to set up a cloning with an opacity of about 40%, and I'm going to make sure my hardness is down to 0, and that the size is something maybe just a little bit bigger than the star. That looks fine. So now I'm going to hold down Alt, set a cloning source to somewhere that I think looks similar to the area where the star is, and I can start clicking in this general area, just cloning. Maybe just take my source from a few different places so I don't get an obvious copy. So that's done a really nice job there. So we can just check what it was like before with a clear disk here that we don't like, and what it looks like now. Well, I'm really happy with that. So that's excellent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the exact same process to my sulfur image and my oxygen image, and I'll be back with you in just a moment when that's done. Okay, that's my sulfur. I had quite a lot more cloning to do to fix the stars with this one, but I'm reasonably happy with that result now. So I've done the hydrogen and I've done the sulfur, so now just the oxygen to do. So there is my sulfur, my hydrogen and my oxygen. So I'm now going to paste these into my RGB image. Let's make a new image, again exactly the same size, RGB, so that we can compare the results before and after, with and without this modified process. So here's our sulfur into the red, and then we'll want the hydrogen into the green, and then the oxygen into the blue. We can combine the three and come back out. There we go. Alright, so here is my if you like starless version of the nebula, and now I can do all sorts of things with this. For example, I can do a new adjustment layer to do a curve stretch on that and really bring out all the lovely detail in this image. Really looking quite nice, that is. I'm not terribly keen on this little red blob here. I think I might knock that on the head. I think it's just coming from the sulfur really. It is actually visible in all three, but I don't like it, so I'm going to just clobber it basically with the clone tool. Doesn't look right to me. That's just a personal thing. So I'm going to recopy those one more time. Red and the green, and then the blue. Okay, so I've got rid of that little red blob that I didn't like, and I'm just going to put my curves adjustment back in again now. Lovely. Okay, so once I'm happy with that, the nebula is looking really nice. In fact, I might actually do a bit more processing. I might bring up the camera raw filter at this point. Mistake I made there, you can't bring up a camera raw filter on a curve stretch layer. So I'll bring up a stamp layer by doing Control Alt Shift NE, and now I can bring up the camera raw filter. There we go, that's better. And in fact the extra stretching I did has showed up a little bit of a problem here. I've got some diffraction spikes from my Newtonian that are still actually visible in this area here. So I need to go back and fix that. So they're green, so they're probably in the hydrogen alpha. Yes, I can see them here in the hydrogen alpha. So I'm going to reduce the size of my cloning brush quite a lot, and I'm going to do some very local cloning there to kill that off, so that I can't see that anymore. Looks a lot better. Okay, yeah, I'm happier with that. Okay, so I'm going to recombine into my original image. So actually, do you know what? I'll just start again. That's not a problem. We'll just recreate that RGB image. Go back into the red. Copy and paste into the red. Hydrogen. Copy. Paste into the green, and the oxygen, copy, paste into the blue. There we go. Okay, not going too quickly and copying and pasting very badly. Okay, so now I'll just do my curves adjustment layer I did before. Okay, there we go. And now I can do my stamp layer, Control Alt Shift, hold them all down, and then press N and then E. My stamp layer, and now I can bring up the camera raw filter, and I'm going to do a little bit of clarity just to put a little bit more punch. Maybe, well, I don't want to put too much saturation in there. I don't like oversaturated images, but I'm going to go into the detail section and put some noise reduction in here, and I'm going to do some color noise reduction as well. Okay, and then I can go back to basic, and I'm just going to look at maybe lifting the highlights slightly. Yeah, I'm really quite happy with that. That's nice. Okay, so take OK on that. Alright, so it's applied those changes. So here's my finished image of the nebula, but without any stars on it. So the next thing to do is to create an image just of the stars, and we're going to do that from the original data. So I'm going to go back to my original data, but I'm going to reset that all the way back to when I just loaded it. I hadn't done anything to it at all. We'll do that on all three images. There we go. Okay, so here's the sulfur, and I'm going to do very little with that. I can barely see the background, so I am going to do the mode change, exposure and gamma, image adjustment. I could do a little bit on curves. I don't want to do very much at all. I don't want to start to see halos, and I don't want to see the deep sky object appearing. That's really important not to see that. So actually I'm not going to do that curve stretch. I'm going to leave that exactly as it is. So now go to the hydrogen alpha. Now this one, even without any stretching, I can see the deep sky object. So what I'm going to do, first I'll do the conversion to 16-bit, exposure and gamma. And now I'm going to do a levels adjustment on it, and I'm going to lift the black level and deliberately kill off the deep sky object. There we are, it's gone. Okay, and now I'm going to go into the oxygen, do the same thing, convert to 16-bit, exposure and gamma, and I can see a little bit of deep sky object in this, so I'll do a levels adjustment, lift up the black level, and just kill off the deep sky object. So I've just got stars. Okay, so here's my sulfur, hydrogen and oxygen, and now I'm going to make a new image, same size again, but RGB color, same as before, and I'm going to go into the channels again. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to combine them as red, green, blue, but they're going to be sulfur, hydrogen, oxygen. That's clearly not going to give real star colours. What you can actually do, you can actually acquire data using RGB filters and get true colours on your stars if you want to, and use that data to, and you'll only need very short exposures to get that data. You can use that data to put your stars back in so that your stars are actually true colour. If you haven't done that, you can do what I'm doing here and use the SHO data to create artificial star colours. So let's take our sulfur and copy that into the red channel, and we'll take our hydrogen and we'll copy that into our green channel, and our oxygen, and copy that into our blue channel. Then we'll combine the RGB and go back to layers. Okay, so here's an image of the stars. Now if we look a little more closely at these stars, we can actually see they're all different colours. We've got yellows, we've got blues, etc. Now you can experiment with doing different things to this data to make your stars look more realistic, if you like. So one thing you can do, for example, is to kill off the magenta. So if I go new adjustment layer, hue and saturation, OK, select the magentas and drop the saturation to 0. So I've got no magenta. I don't like magenta stars, they don't look right. So now if I look at these stars, they're sort of various different shades of red and white and yellow, which I find much more pleasing. So that's fine, and I'm not going to mess with the curve stretching of this or anything like that. I'm just going to leave it as it is. I'm now going to create a stamp layer, so Control Alt Shift NE to give me a stamp layer, and now I'm going to do Control A to select all, or you can just do Select All, and then I'm going to do Edit, Copy Merged, and now I'm going to go back to our image of the nebula, and I'm just going to do Control V. So it's added in these stars, and I'm going to actually rename that layer stars, and the one below I'll call nebula. So our stars layer at the moment is just sitting over the top. So if I hide it, you can see it's sitting over the top of our nebula. So what I'm going to do now is change the blending mode from normal to lighten, and when we do that, we now see that the stars are there, but the background is allowing the nebula to show through it. Now you can't really see much in the stars at the moment, so to make sure I've got the star layer selected, I'm going to do Image Adjustment Curves. You could also do Brightness. There's different ways of doing this. If I apply a curve stretch to my stars, you'll see that I can lift up the stars and see more and more and more of them, or less of them. So I can sort of control, if you like, how much star content there is in my image. I could also do an image adjustment brightness, has a similar effect, lifting up the stars, so I see more of them. And this is really just down to your personal taste, how many stars you want to see in the image. But now let's compare the original combined image with our new image. So this is what we had, and this is what we have now. Now you'll notice here that the nebula in this image is much brighter and clearer than it is in this image. If I want to make the one in this image similarly bright, I would need to do some more curve stretching. In fact, I need a stamp layer there, don't I? So let's just create a stamp layer, and then I'm going to start doing a curve stretch on that to really make it, the nebula, punch and really show up. And now you can see the problem. These stars are getting really horrible now. But with our new version, we've got the punchiness of the nebula, but the stars are really much less intrusive, and you can really enjoy all of the detail and beauty in the nebula, while still having, you know, the main stars there in the right place. But you're not drowning in stars. You can choose how much you want the stars to show, and we've got that separate layer. We can change its intensity and change how many stars we've got in there. I hope that hopefully you'll find that an interesting technique that you can make use of. You can go too far. Look what's happening here. If I increase the brightness too much, I start to get redness appearing. So you can go too far, so I do have to be a little careful. But I think that's a really pleasing technique, and hopefully you find that useful. See you next time. Clear skies.